Welcome everyone to today's Observability Clinic, Power Dashboarding with Dynatrace. This is an update, April 2022. The reason why we put the timestamp there is because there's a lot of cool innovation in Dynatrace around dashboarding, and I'm pretty sure this won't be the last of these sessions. With me today, I want to let them or give them a chance to introduce. First of all, Thomas Ziegelbecker. Hi, how are you? Greetings to Vienna.
Hey, I'm the product manager.
Yeah, exactly. Hey. Product manager, you've been with Dynatrace for how long, and what's your I guess your main objective is dashboarding, but can you give us a little bit more background?
Sure thing. I'm with Dynatrace for 2.5 years almost, or soonish, and my background is e-commerce first, and then Dynatrace started off in digital experience. I did also a fair share of data science, so yes, I know a bit about data and I love it. Therefore,
Perfect.
I'm here.
Thank you so much for driving these efforts. And then Enrique, ¿cómo estás?
Hello, ¿cómo estás?
Maybe a quick word about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm Enrique. I'm lead product engineer in Dynatrace, working on Data Explorer and dashboards. I've been here in Dynatrace for 2.5 years, kind of. I'm based in Barcelona, by the way, best office ever. And before working in Dynatrace, I've been working in some venture builder startups. So I know the small companies, big companies, related always with software development and web development. So yeah, I'm really prepared and willing to share some insights regarding dashboarding.
Perfect. Before I'll pass it over to you, Thomas and Enrique, also want to quickly give Henrik the chance to introduce himself, even though he's a man that doesn't need a whole lot of introduction. But we also have Henrik here because I know a lot of people have questions on how to use these dashboards and the data. And Henrik, we wanted to have you, especially for the Q&A.
I thought it was free drinks. That's why I joined.
It's the wrong meeting.
Oh gosh, no. So I'm gonna leave the meeting then.
Okay.
So now I'm here for listening to the secret sauce of the power dashboarding for sure. And if you want to learn more about Kubernetes, reach out to me later on after this webinar.
Henrik runs Is It Observable, a great YouTube channel to educate you on observability secrets on cloud native, and obviously working very closely with the Dynatrace product team. Now, remember, if you have questions, this is your chance because it's live to ask questions. Please use the Q&A feature. If you're watching this recorded, then you'll find ways to get in touch with us. You can either go to community.dynatrace.com. You have our names. I'm pretty sure you can find a way to get a hold of us if you have questions at a later stage. But if you're live, please use the Q&A feature. But now, Thomas, handing it over to you. Let us know what people are going to learn today and then guide us through the presentation.
Sure thing. Thanks, Andreas. And you already did a perfect segue to the most important question: what will you learn today? We will look at 3 things. First off, our latest improvements with a particular focus on added and improved visualizations for states. And second, what we delivered in the past in regards to extended configurability across your visualizations, so not just for states. And the second part is already a bit of a segue to the second part of this presentation, which is Data Explorer migration, or in a less positive way, custom chart deprecation. And there we will provide you with an update to the when and hows of this world. And last but not least, we'll have a look at the roadmap, which usually people love a lot, and what we are working on right now, what we are working on next, immediately, and what we consider later, beyond a certain point in time. But let's dive right in, and let me, before handing it over immediately to Enrique, because demoing is the coolest part, and I'm thrilled already. Let me give you some context to the first 2 things that I mentioned. First, the added and improved visualization for states, which we consider as the following things that we shipped recently. First off, we I would say heavily in terms of visually at least, improved single value and also the coloring options for tables with 231. We also quite recently, shipped the first versions of heat maps and also the first version of honeycombs with 230 and 236 respectively, which all try to, as we discussed so many times and got feedback from you, tries to improve how you see states immediately. And the second part is all about extended configurability. We got lots of feedback in the transition from custom charting to Data Explorer that certain things are missing, or that even things are missing on both sides. And so it will contain things like color overrides, exporting your chart data or stacked graph visualizations that were missing. Now they're in with 235 and 236 bar and area respectively. Or even things beyond, like which you haven't been able before, which is to pick your custom resolution. So, so you can select the granularity you desire on your charts. And since showing is always better than telling, let me hand over to Enrique and have him all the fun. Go ahead, do it.
Okay.
Take over.
Yeah, sure.
Do the cool stuff and let me just watch.
Yeah, you can watch and enjoy, Thomas.
I will.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Let's start. I'm going to go directly to our improvements in the single value and table visualizations. I mean, those visualizations already existed, but we get some feedback, and we realized that we need to improve the way those visualizations can be seen. We needed to improve in the readability for those visualizations. So here in this dashboard, you can see certain metrics, and here we have 3 single value tiles, right? First of all, you can see that the values are bigger than in the past. We also have the spark line here that displays the trend of data along time, and also the trend itself, which simply is a value that represents the difference from the beginning and the last data points in the given period, right? But the most important thing, probably the easiest to see one, is the background color here. In the past, when we were using thresholds, we were coloring the font, and probably for small tiles that was not easy to see. So right now we are just coloring the entire background based on the threshold color. Let me show you how this works exactly in Data Explorer. Oh, first of all, by the way, this metric you can see here is the CPU slack. So basically wasted resources, the CPU used by pod in a given Kubernetes cluster divided by a CPU block, the total CPU reserved by that pod. Okay, then if we look at the difference with the past single values, well, in the past we saw thresholds like this, right? We were coloring the font of the value. This is the behavior that right now the old tiles have, but you can always go to configure a specific tile, enable this toggle button, threshold background, and then you can get benefit of this feature. And for new single value tiles, this feature is enabled by default. Okay, so more things I can show you here regarding single values. Well, for single values and other visualizations that are using thresholds, now we can configure custom colors for thresholds. I don't know if I have this color in my brand, maybe I want to display the good values in using this color. We can also automatically adjust the color of the font, so there's always a good contrast with the background for accessibility purposes. What else? Yeah, sparkline and trendline. You have toggle buttons here to hide them or display them. If you hide them, you get more room for the entire value. There's also an interesting feature that we have added, not only for single value, but also for all single value related visualizations. So tables, top charts, pie chart, whatever that is displaying a value instead of a data series, which is basically this full transformation selector that we have here. We are displaying here one single value, but we are considering a time frame of 2 hours, and we have a data series. So in fact, we have a lot of data points, right? We need to decide how are we going to aggregate all this data along time into one single value. We have this auto transformation, so we try to decide what is best for the given metric, but we give you the freedom to configure it the way you want to. So you can always choose last value, which means the last data point for the given time period. And you can also jump to average, probably the most used one, the right one for percentages. You have count, the right one for counts when you have problems. For example, you want to display the total count. Maybe you want to display percentiles, wherever. You have several options here. It's up to you. Another interesting feature that you can see here, but it's also available for other visualizations, is the format. Right now I'm displaying 75.8, but I can choose to have more decimals, or I can even remove it all, the format, so we display the entire value, the real value, as it is. Yeah, let me go back to 1 decimal. It looks much better. Okay, and finally, let me go back to the dashboard. I just want to show you how you can easily resize those tiles. Basically, what we have done here is to make sure that when we resize single value tile, we get all the available space as much as possible. So we make the font bigger and so on. Also, if you reduce the size of the tile, at some point, we will lose the spark line, and also at some point, we will lose the trend line, because the important thing for a small tile like this one is just show the value, right? Okay, so a lot of topics covered regarding single value. Let me jump now to tables.
Maybe Enrique, just one quick question as it came in, and also encouraging more people to ask questions in Q&A. Hanos has asked, when will the feature be available, what you've just shown, in which version?
Which one?
the single values with the custom color coding. I think that was the big
single
question.
value. It's already available. I think Thomas showed the chart. Maybe Thomas, you can give us exactly the
231.
231. Okay, that means Janos, if you have not available, if this is not yet available in your managed environment, then I encourage you to update your managed environment if possible, because 231 has been out for quite a while now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so more stuff we have done also regarding thresholds, regarding improving the visibility of the states. Also, color thresholds, background color thresholds in tables. In the past, we were just changing the color of the font, and right now we also give the option to change the entire background color. We have this in the threshold section, the link cell color to thresholds. If you disable, you get the old behavior, the one that your old tiles will have. You can always configure them, enable this toggle button, and you will get this behavior by default. This is always also the behavior we have in new tables. By the way, this table is displaying here basically the percentage of requested capacity, right, for a given cluster. And another feature we added here into tables, apart from having this background cell color, is the option to add new thresholds, to add more thresholds. So we can have one threshold per column. And imagine I want to have to highlight somehow requests over 3 cores. So if I put 3,000 millicores, I want to put that in red. I have here as well the background color. So this is okay regarding single values and tables, but we have done more things, more visualizations to help you show or easily visualize your states, right? We got feedback from you. You have been requesting us to implement the honeycomb, not just for problems, but for other metrics, so you can see easily the states there. And we heard your feedback, and we basically implemented. You can see here several, this is a Kubernetes dashboard. We can see here the state of several Kubernetes metrics. And well, you can see that at a glance, the size of the hive resized based on the available space, but also based on the number of hives that we have in the honeycomb. And if you allow me to go into this one, which is pretty interesting, I can show you also some more details. First of all, how can you create a honeycomb visualization? Well, in the visualization section at the bottom, you have the honeycomb option. Now, this specific metric is basically showing the CPU throttling. So we have here the top 10 container group instances based on throttling ratio in descending order for the last 24 hours. And you can see easily that there are 3 of them in a bad situation. Something is going wrong here. There's a lot of throttling for those ones, right? One thing you can do just to get some better insights on what's going on or where to put your priorities, put your focus, is to show labels, because this way we can see, for example, that this one specific CGI have a higher throttling than the other. So maybe we can put our attention in this one. You can see the legend here displaying the count of each state. We can hide the legend so there's more space for the visualization itself. But what happens when you have not just 10 results, like in this case, but you have more, I don't know, 100 results. Or in this case, probably we will not have 100. Yeah, demo effect. You know how it works. Maybe I'm having internet issues. I don't think so. Okay.
That happens to every great demo person.
No, I think I know, because you're referring to my cluster, and I think that cluster has been. So if you do last for 90 days or 72 hours, you will have some values.
Yeah, but it was working like 5 minutes ago. Anyway, I can explain it from here, right? But what I was trying to show, I mean, at least try to open this one again. Let's see if there's a problem with the data, problem with the environment. Oh, yeah. It's taking too long, so probably, I don't know why, but we're having a problem with the environment. Awesome, amazing. Yeah, okay. I'll go back later then to honeycombs, so we can jump into another topic, because I wanted to show you basically that you can hide the legend, or sorry, hide the hive, so you can have just the count of the states, and you can pin that to a dashboard, and then in the dashboard you will see one, basically the legend, but in big, right? So the count of red, yellow, and green instances. And well, this is a very convenient way to just see the results at a glance without having to count manually. In any case, we'll try that later. I'm going to jump into heat maps. That's a different environment. I hope this one works. And basically, if honeycombs is a snapshot, a static snapshot of the results of your metric, heat maps gives you the evolution of the states along time, or also the data distribution along time. So you can see how data is moving, right? It's evolving along time. It also helps you find interesting spots, right? So I have created a couple interesting tiles here. The first one is this failed synthetic executions per monitor, which basically shows you how often a specific synthetic monitor is failing over time. The darker the red, it means the worse, obviously. And this tile offers an overview of problematic areas with synthetic monitor, so you can focus your attention easily. But I have another interesting heat maps here, which is action duration distribution for one synthetic monitor. Basically, we see the distribution of one synthetic monitor for one specific performance metric along time. You can easily see that most of the data is concentrated in this low section. And in fact, a lot of the data is concentrated between 830 milliseconds and 1.2 seconds, but you can easily discover also spot outliers like this one. So let me show you how can you configure a heat map visualization. Okay, we got it here. First of all, in visualization section, you have the heat map option. So you can see heat maps. And basically, what we allow you is to configure the number of buckets on the X and the Y axis. Basically, heat maps, it's bucketizing the data, putting data into buckets. And we can have, we can change the granularity on the Y axis. So we have a bigger ranges per bucket, or smaller ranges per bucket, and also we can do so with the x-axis. The x-axis is a very interesting one, because you can play also with the time frame, right? In this case, I have 30 days, I have 30 buckets on the x-axis. It means I have one bucket per day. I can switch to, I don't know, 7 days, and then I can switch to 7 buckets. And again, I'm having 1 bucket per day, just concentrating all the data inside. So another interesting thing with heat maps is, well, let me show you what we have, sorry, here in the past. What I show you is those 2 tiles, but this one have the values on the y-axis, while the other one have dimensions on the y-axis. Well, the main difference here is that when we have values on the y-axis, the color of the heat map represents how many data points are inside that bucket. In this case, we have 18 for this specific bucket. However, the color in these other heat maps represents the average value for that time bucket for the selected result. Let me show you briefly how you can switch from one to another. In the visual settings, again, we have this y-axis option. You can jump from value to split by dimensions. In this case, we only have 1 dimension because I'm not splitting by anything. Let me remove the filters. Let me add something here in the split by. Let me run it again and cross fingers it works. Yes. So right now you can see the average values for each one of those synthetic monitors along time. And if you want to have higher resolutions, because at the end this is just an average value for the entire day, if you want to have higher resolutions, you can modify the x-axis. You can see now that this is like, I don't know, half an hour almost buckets, where you can see more detailed data. Okay, so with that, I finish what we have done regarding better visualizing states, but I also want to jump into, very briefly, I promise, into features we have done in order to improve the configurability. So if I display the graph here, this is an interesting one because we have some series. Yeah, very hard to see which one is one with this color palette. I can change it to the default color palette. Nothing new here. But even in this situation, maybe I want to highlight this series, or I don't like this color for whatever reason. So you have the option to add the color override in the metric itself, the visual settings for that metric. I want to add the color override. I can select that series, which was this one, customer life, and I can change the color here, right? Now it's easier to visualize this one. Maybe I want to differentiate it from other metrics, or I want to add even a custom color like black color. Okay, you can add as many color overrides as you want, as long as you have series, of course. Then another feature, well, by the way, this is pretty interesting for Abdex rating. Maybe you're interested in painting good stuff in green, tolerable in yellow, and frustrating in red, for example. And now jumping to another feature that we implemented is the resolution drop-down selector. In the past, we only allow, I mean, this was not exposed. We were using auto by default. We're providing 120 data points per visualization. Now we allow you to just modify this. So you can go to a very fine, very small resolution, 1 minute. Obviously, this will take a while because it's 7 days. There's a lot of data. But you can paint all this detailed data. You can get all this detailed data. In fact, in this case, it's a very good example because we don't have 1 data point per minute. So we see data without connecting the dots, right? For that kind of situations, which is really common, you can use this connect apps toggle that we have here, which basically is connecting the data points between them. Let me go back to a different resolution, like 1 hour, for example. Last thing I want to show you right now is a different visualization that helps you understand how each data series is contributing to the total, or that allows you to compare data series between them. Basically, those are the stack area and stack column. It's pretty similar visualization one to the other, with an additional point that is with stack column, you may end up in a situation where, well, this happens as well for column, not just for stack column, but you may end up in a situation when you have a lot of bars, very thin bars, or very big bars, right? You can change that as well by using the resolution I just showed you. So we have last 7 days. Maybe I only want to have 1 bar per day. Done. This way I have stack bars 1 per day. I can compare how each data series is contributing to the total. I can compare synthetic monitors in this case between them. And with that, I hand over again to Thomas.
Check Slack if you want to show it. I created an example for you. Just
is it working? Is it working game?
This is great teamwork. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, let me go for it. So it was in a different environment. Or...
It's demo live. It's all good. Don't worry. It won't break. Yeah. I promise.
And I also want to say, Thomas, it seems you not only are you helping Enrique here, but you also helped already a couple of the questions to answer them. I encourage everyone to put in even more questions. I know, Thomas, you have full access to them as well. Some of them, I think you probably have already covered, and I see that you are typing the answers. Maybe at the end, we do a little best of kind of recap on the questions as well.
Sure. Okay, so this is basically what I wanted to show you. Here we're displaying just the legend. It's a very good way to display just the count if this is what you need, right? To know how many results are in each status. And as I showed you, it's basically this thing here. You can hide the hive, so only the legend is visible. Yeah. Now I can hand over to you, Thomas. Thank you.
Just need to get rid of Slack first so people don't see our faces once more. It's like Inception otherwise. All right.
And I just want to answer a couple of the questions as you start to share again. All of these features will be available in both managed and SaaS. Thomas gave an overview and is giving more overview of what has already been made available in which Dynatrace version and what is coming, what they're working on. But remember, everything that is available in one version and one deployment option, whether SaaS, will also be available in managed, but maybe a little time shifted because you have it under control on when you're rolling out certain versions on managed.
All right. Since I can't see what I share, am I sharing the other little things?
Yes, exactly. You do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You see, PMs really know how technology works. Yeah. Okay. Since there's many more things actually, and I'm proud to be able to say that at this point, let's just briefly look at a few other smaller things that we aren't able otherwise to tell you about. One is a tiny thing, but important for people using tables, is we increase the metric level from 5 to 10. So you're now actually able to put more columns into your table with 231. We deliver the popularity score in your dashboards list so that you now easily and quickly find popular dashboards. Also nice for admins so they can actually remove boards. And with 235, you can upload images. Awesome. By the way, I've received the ask whether we can add links to these images. Yeah, I've read that before. We will consider it, but no promises. With 238, I don't need to explain that since Enrique showed it already. You can now see the full numbers. With 239, there will be a first version of exporting to CSV, pretty much the same as with custom charting, will be made better later on as well. And with 240, which is pretty much the presence where we are at the moment, we will introduce custom dimension filters, which, because you now have with your dynamic filtering the possibility to put some pre-selected filters there, but not probably all of the ones that you actually know. With this, you can pick any entity. And for mint metrics, we will filter all your dimensions, so all kind of columns that you have in your metrics. And for built-in, we will allow to only filter primary for start, which means you can now at least easily create presets that, for instance, have, coming from digital experience, have web performance metrics on it, and you can then simply filter by application or think about hosts or services all the same. So it will make this very much easier. And since I got the question, that will be my next point already, point 2. What about the migration and what about all this? I kind of hinted it before. Let's look briefly into 3 questions or 3 parts, which is, first off, when is the Data Explorer pretty much the same or equally capable as custom charting? We hope by the end of CQ2, we will get there. Things that we see still miss a bit is the export part, which the first part goes out with 239. We also acknowledge, and I've seen that a lot in your feedback. Thanks, by the way, for all the feedback given in the survey on the Data Explorer page. the filtering still could be better. That's where the whole custom dimensions are heading to. And last but not least, Enrique even showed you today that decimals is already there. Units will be hopefully there with 242. So CQ2, ideally we are done with most of the stuff. So, but when do we then need to migrate? Usually the question comes. I don't have a date yet because I believe to really communicate one, and we hope we will be able to by June, the latest, 2 things need to be checked. First, both need to be equally capable. I already talked about that. Ideally, end of Q2, we get there. And second, the extended migration mechanisms that I mentioned here need also to be in place. What does that mean? Right now, you can only migrate on a chart-by-chart basis, but it would also be nice to migrate the whole dashboard, obviously. And this is exactly what we're going to do in the third part, as you can see. We're going to add dashboard by dashboard basis in the UI, and we also will allow you, by adding an API call, to even at scale migrate all of your dashboards. And before you have, maybe you spare your questions and maybe first check out our dedicated community thread for this. So I've linked it and on the presentation slide, and you can then check it out later. Just join a discussion, tell us what you're still missing if you still miss something, and yeah, talk about it. So third part then, and I tried to, am I really late? Kinda, okay, I tried to be quick. So lots of things we've talked about. Units are ready. That's something we are working on right now, which will be out soon, hopefully. Dashboard filters are also mentioned, thresholds and heat maps, something that Enrique tried to work around a bit in the presentation. You did well, by the way. They will come soon as well, just like for any other visualizations, and some smaller stuff like series color consistency. So this is small things that used to be in place with custom charting, and these are the ones that we think should be copied or carried over. I even have a detailed slide for that, damn it. So this is how it would look visually. And one thing that I didn't mention is images via URL. So for now it's upload only, file upload only, and we're gonna add this as well, and maybe we can sneak in somehow to also allow you to add URLs, but again, no promises. And they're so restrictive, these engineers, you don't have an idea. What we work on next, that's probably the most interesting. So we done a lot in the past to get them equally capable, custom charting and data explorer, to make your lives easier. And we are quite convinced that at this point in time, we should go one step back and focus on the whole experience, which means making it easier to start with the data explorer. To be a bit more visual, we've actually in the feedback seen 2 things that you still struggle with. First off, that's the first row, which is looking up metrics, searching for metrics, getting started. That's something we believe we can level up. And for instance, 3 things that we have on our mind, which are potential topics. First one is to give you examples that you can start with. The second one is we already provide now a hover context for any metric in the select combo, but we think we can even do a better job than that. So to provide more there. And last but not least, to give it a bit of a facelift in terms of where things are so that you can navigate quicker throughout the data explorer. And the second bigger topic is all about switching between the lovely build and code mode. Yes, we've seen that you love code mode to most extent, but you still believe, and we do too, that we can level up there as well. For instance, if you put very simple things in the build mode and you go to code mode, just change a tiny little bit, you can't revert back. And that's something where we, just like you, believe we should level up. Another one that we've heard a few times is, okay, I've now built this crazy expression, and I would just love to add something else in another code tab. Could it not be easier than just copy pasting the stuff? Or what about another visualization where I want to have the same thing? So what we can envision is to have a simple save expression button and then just use it in a single line. And the last part, I don't want to go into detail because we already did before a bit. We want to still, and that's already part of this, improve the filtering, because this is the most basic thing that should just work in our point of view. Coming to the later, and yes, I will be vague there. It's 2 things that we envision. First, enriched context. So you might see a chart, you see spikes or drops, and you then might wonder, what now, right? And so we believe by enriching that on top of your chart, like providing things like think problems, think events, maybe even trends or forecasts, you then can better decide whether you want to, whether it's worthwhile to dig in or not. And the second thing, if you now have this context and you then know, okay, there was a problem, or maybe it was a deployment, so I might have a deeper look at dedicated entity screens in Dynatrace. We also want to look at how to make this smooth, so how you can better interact even on the dashboard or even on the data explorer side before going down. And there's topics like more tile actions around custom links, for instance, to better then link to subsequent screens or to any other dashboard that you have, as well as improved drill downs in general, because some of them are not ideal, I would say, at the moment. And then, yeah, and then there's lots of other things that we haven't decided on, though, which one goes first. And particularly with these two topics in general, we would love to have your input, your feedback, your concerns, your wishes, because then we can better prioritize which to put first there. Already getting me to kind of almost the last slide, which is resources, which means whenever you have this feedback, please provide them in either regarding the migration in the dedicated migration thread in the community, or when it's about the roadmap that I really briefly presented now, put it please in the dedicated roadmap thread. And all the releases and all the features that you've seen and the enhancements, no worries, you can check out. I've linked all the release notes where you can then also find the drill downs to the documentation. And with that, yeah, from Barcelona, Linz, and Vienna with love, and handing back to Andreas.
I want to applaud, because this was amazing, especially with the time on all the great content that you pushed through. I know I've asked you to make it quick, and you delivered. So this is really perfect. And not only that, you've also already answered a lot of the questions. For the people that are live, I have posted the relevant links that Thomas had in the slide deck already in the chat, which means the link back to the community for the feedback on the roadmap, but also for the conversion from the chart to the data explorer. That's all there. Also, thanks to some of the folks that are posted links to the BizOps dashboards, because some people are asking, are there any best practices on business dashboards? Yes, there are out there. There's also a lot of content on Dynatrace University. We have done several of these sessions over the years with different product managers on different teams. So there was one question around automatic problem detection. Can we get from there to the particular metric? It's a different topic, but this is how our Dynatrace Davis engine works. So you find a lot of these things in the existing material that is out there. Now, there's a lot of questions that are still coming in, and I think, just now, I mean, people are, I think, putting more stuff in. Thomas and Enrique, I know you've already had a look at some of these already, but I'm not sure if you want to maybe pick one or two and just answer them live here. I know it's a lot. For instance, the ability of, do you plan on the ability of creating borders between the tiles? This would be a great visual benefit. I think grouping things together, right? I think that's something might already be on the list for you.
I got to be honest and transparent there. There's so many things we could do, obviously, as always, but for dashboards, it feels like it's even more true. And what we like, our approach to this is we want to move fast right now, because we see still quite some things missing in our point of view. And we want to get to the fancy things, as I said, like context and interactivity. But we always try to sneak in small little things like images, for instance. And when it comes to grouping, what I can still envision, at least, which we know from competitors and which I think is a smart thing to copy, is like the means to also colorize the background, for instance, of a markdown file, because then you can actually visually create columns, which you right now cannot so easily, other than using images. So in the current platform that we have, and with the current dashboard solution, we will not advance too far in that direction. In the future, we probably will. But these small things we potentially add not like complex grouping mechanisms.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Maybe some questions, or one question that I've heard as well in my discussions with users is there anything planned where certain values like a 0 and a 1 could be translated into something human readable? The example that was brought up here was the SNMP plugin provides a metric that is the Ethernet status. It either returns 0 or 1, and on a dashboard it would just be easier to read as down or up. Now I could also envision you can still take 0 and 1 and then use green or red, and red indicating it is down and green, right? That would be an easy solution for this. But anything like that planned of kind of giving
nothing planned, but I've come across it, I think, in a product idea, if I'm not mistaken, and also only recently. I think it was kind of mapping, I guess data mapping. Mm-hmm. Is the term, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
It makes sense, obviously. Whether it's easily achievable and whether it makes it into the roadmap, to be honest, I can't tell right now. I haven't even answered the product idea, but I will try to soon.
Perfect. I mean, John is asking a question. I've also heard this. Is there anything planned where in the dashboards you can also define, let's say, workday timeframes, where you can say that the regular work days from 9 to 5, and you want to kind of focus on, when you create dashboards, that you really focus on the time ranges that matter to some of the 9 to 5 businesses, also work days during the week versus the weekends?
I think there's two things to it. What I've often read, also still being, or while I was still in digital experience, is the need to cut out parts. What you mentioned, however, and Andy, maybe you can shed some light on it. Is it more like predefined timeframe selector that you can pick for your dashboard? Is it more like really cutting out this time for the sake of not seeing spikes or drops because you don't care about these other timeframes where you don't like off business hours?
Exactly. The specific example was the heat maps. If you're looking at a 30-day heat map, you might not be interested in the everything between 5 and 9, so in the night and also on the weekends. So just basically exclude certain time frames from the data visualization.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of room for improvement in heat map visualization itself. I mean, we still want to iterate over it and so on, but right now, it's, as Thomas said, there's a lot of things we can do. But we need to kind of prioritize, right?
Yeah, of course.
Not just that. But maybe I can put this into the roadmap, a small post about this, because there's more to it, and there's a huge product idea even. And to some extent, we can't even influence things technically too much because we consume metrics, obviously. But like cutting out bits and pieces, if you want to do it at the metric level, technically it's not that easy. At least not as far as I remember. So
on the other side, I would say that one can still create some metric which have ones or zeros depending on the time period that you want, right? And you can always use a calculated metric to have data or have zeros otherwise. It's kind of a crazy idea, but something that could be used to achieve that.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, John Kelly, he's one of our colleagues who has been dealing with dashboards over the last many years. I don't want to give any name, any concrete number, because then I'm dating him. But I know he has a lot of great feedback, and also I see Brandon, same area on business hours. So I would encourage both of you and everybody else that has the same requirement, jump over to the link I posted earlier on the community discussions, and then bring your use case down there. And I think that's a great place to start. Yeah. There's one more on scrolling for tables. Do you have any plans on that?
Nah, never.
Never. Okay.
Just kidding. That's one of the many things, and it's quite high up right now, at the least in the interactivity bucket, to be honest.
Okay.
If not even the first.
Okay, that's perfect. And then actually, Henrik, this might be something for you. Sebastian is asking about OpenTelemetry integration. They have instrumented their app with OpenTelemetry, and it's all great, but now they're interested in displaying data in terms of most resource consuming traces split by span name. So I think that's something that we can probably easily do, but you may have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it really depends on how you produce. If you're just utilizing pure spans and traces, but you could also take advantage of metrics and add the right resources, so dimensions, to those metrics, like the trace ID, for example, or trace contact, the span, and so on. And once the metric will be ingested in Dynatrace, so those will be new dimensions. And then you could be very creative. I think a heat map, for example, could be great. For example, calculating how many requests has, in fact, the trace ID versus the total number of requests that comes in Dynatrace. So then you can calculate like a ratio, tracing ratio, and you can display that through a heat map, for example. So you will count a number of buckets that are in which percentage of tracing. But yes, I think for the moment, what is objective that you describe is not completely there, but there is still a workaround to achieve what you're trying to do, for sure. Mm-hmm. And Sebastian, if you want to chat, I'm really interested on your use case. That was great. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I would love to help you there, for sure.
There's one more that I almost missed from the almost very beginning. I hope I understand the question correctly. I'll read it out loud. We have auto scalability enabled on, which means I assume you're talking, Ahmed, about in your environment, in your infrastructure, you're automatically scaling, maybe in Kubernetes with pods. And then the question is, what's the metric to use in order to line graph the number of hosts, or I guess could also be pods, change over time? If it's really about hosts, it's just a metric, right? The number of connected agents that you have, the number of hosts. If it is pods, there's also, I think, a metric around the number of pods that you currently have running.
But I would just add that the metric itself will just provide things. But if you want to look at variations and changes, you can use metric expressions. There's plenty of operators that will allow you to calculate what the number of events, for example, now, and number of events the last 15 or 30 minutes, and then compare and see the variations between that time frame. So that could be a way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So Ahmed, maybe something for you to also follow up with Henrik, if that's of interest to learn more about this. Let's see. There's questions around trends over the yearly basis. I mean, metric trends, metric baselining. I guess this is also what I hear quite a bit. Kind of like self-adjusting baselines and then kind of visualizing value bands based on other historical data. I mean, Thomas, I think you showed some of this or mentioned some of this, but any more thoughts on this, especially around I mean, we do automatic baselining in Dynatrace for our anomaly detection, but is there anything planned where we also do automatic thresholding, maybe based on historical data?
Currently, we haven't brought together these two concepts. I think I already answered that question. What we have on the roadmap definitely is the possibility to add an ad hoc baseline to any metric, which will actually leverage the algorithms that Davis provides also for the aforementioned baselines. Mm-hmm. So that should ideally already tell you in cases where you have drops, spikes, whatever, gaps. Okay, gaps is a bad example, but drops and spikes are, whether it's normal or not. So if you put it on top, you then see like the confidence bands. That's what we envision. Yeah, and then you should be able to say, okay, outlier, no outlier.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I mean, you call it ad hoc baselining or ad hoc thresholds. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. There is I'm not sure if you are the perfect to answer this, but there's a question around user session query language and that visualization. Is this also in your field or is this somebody else? Because a specific question on user session query, is it possible to change the metric from milliseconds to seconds? I'm just wondering if this is in your field of expertise or somebody else.
Yes and no. If I'm not mistaken, the USQL, there's still a dedicated PM. So I could easily say no, but from what I know, there is no plans to make such additions right now. So the main focus for dashboards is Data Explorer and metrics at the moment, which is us then again.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we could probably go on forever, but I am conscious of everybody's time here. I want to remind everyone, first of all, to thank the people behind the scenes. I think people like Thomas, you and Enrique, you not always get all the credit for building these great features. So, this is now the chance for the people that are still here in the webinar to say thank you, and you can see a lot of claps, and it's just really fantastic. Now, I want to, again, this is not the end of giving positive feedback, but also constructive feedback. I will post the links again to the two discussions. The first one that I'm posting is the Data Explorer migration discussion. So this is this link. And the second one is the one around the roadmap discussions. So folks, I just put this into the chat. Please follow up. This is the best way to provide feedback and learn on what's coming. The session was recorded. It goes up on YouTube, hopefully no later than tomorrow, also on university.dynatrace.com. And if you're on university.dynatrace.com, you can go to Dynatrace webinars, where you find all of the performance clinics, and there we also upload slides, which then also includes all of the links that Thomas and Enrique put together. Thomas, Enrique, I hope we can do this on a maybe quarterly basis to do an update like this, just to see what's like you did it today. I think this was perfect. What has been delivered in the last couple of months, what you're currently working on, and what are you going to work on? And I would love to have you back.
Cool. Yeah.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Awesome. Then thanks to everyone. And I would say, yeah, stay tuned, stay healthy. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.